وعسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون. فأثابهم الله بما قالوا جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها وذلك
No, sir, I don't think you do, because most of us think that, we just don't know what the text is saying. You see, we are not talking here about Muslims. Muslims are people. They have their ups and downs, they have joys, bereavements, everything else like everybody else. We are talking here about an ideology, and therefore we need to call a spoon and a spade a spade. And we need to begin to understand and engage with that ideology. Military is very important, and the force of the arms is almost indispensable, but it is not sufficient. We are dealing with people who hold this ideologically. In that ideology, these verses come, and therefore that is why it is a religious terrorism, because they are motivated by the text which comes from the constitutional ingredient of the religion, namely the Quran and the Sunnah. For instance, when that book and that religion says very clearly who is the enemy, the Jews and the Christians are the enemies, the non-Muslims are the enemies, the pagans are the enemies, and they must be eliminated, or they must surrender, they must be subjugated, they must accept the authority, the supremacy of Islam, then we are in a problem. And they see it from their point of view is that you and I are the enemies of Allah. Point out to me one Christian who would interpret the Bible literally, saying that it is my job to send you to hell. You see, you and I can have a discussion. We can agree to disagree. Then we together can go and have a meal. And you will go to your home and I'll go to mine. And we will coexist. Then a third party comes in and he says, well, we had differed our view because you said to me, because of my literal view of the Bible, I think you are an unbeliever, you're going to go to hell. And I will say the same to you. Maybe let's say for this instance that I'm a Jew, and I said, in my view, you're going to hell too. And the third party comes in and he says, you know what, guys, you're both of you right. You're both going to hell. And Allah has commanded me to send you there right now. That's the difference. No, sir, they don't need to do so. I mean, it may be the case, but they don't need to do so, and they haven't done that for a long time if it was done when the Quran was being compiled and so on. And of course, there is a historical and textual criticism and those problems and the gathering of the Quran, yes, but they don't need to do so, because if you have ever read the Quran, for instance, it says clearly, let's take, for example, Surah 60, verse 1. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا عدوئي وعدوءكم أولياء. O you who have believed, to the Muslim community, Allah is speaking, do not take my enemies and your enemies as your friends and show them any love. Right. Now, if you go to there in Surah 60, again, verse 4, it says that the enmity, therefore, between us and you exists and will exist forever and ever. Now, that enmity forever and ever, okay? And then go to Surah 5, for instance, verse 85. لِتَجِدِنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسَ عَدَوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودِ وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. You will find the most venomous enemies of those who have believed, meaning the Muslims, are the Jews, and those polytheists, meaning the Christians. Now, if Israel was in Alaska or was in Siberia, that Quranic verse still remains valid. Surah 5, verse 51. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء لكم بعدهم أولياء بعض. O you who have believed, do not take the Jews and the Christians as your friends and your protectors, for they are the friends and the protectors of one another. Whoever takes them as friends, he is one of them. Therefore, in other words, by deduction, an apostate. The penalty of an apostate is death, here and in the eternal life. So why would you want to have that? Therefore, that enmity. The Quran has a doctrine called the others. Who is the other? Is that other that the Quran does not hold equal to a Muslim, does not believe that he has the same right, believes that he must be subjugated, he must surrender, and he must be outmaneuvered, overpowered, and ruled, or else he has another choice. He can become a Muslim. I don't think that that is the same as you earlier referred. So it isn't the interpretation. The Quran is very clearly. Take a completely innocent passage. For instance, fasting is prescribed. Everybody knows that it is a prescription, it is an ordinance, it is a directive and a rule of Allah, the fasting. Okay. And that occurs in Surah 2, verse 183. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ. It is being forced, you have been prescribed, it is an order, you must fast. Fair enough. Again in that surah, verse 216, says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ. O you who have believed, jihad has been prescribed unto you. Go to Surah 61, verse 4. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِهِ. Allah loves those who kill in His cause. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّبِيُّ حَرِّضَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ عَلَى الْقِتَالِ. O Apostle of Allah, entice the believers to rise and kill. If these words are eternal, then the people are moved by those words. So, it is not a matter of interpretation. It is there. It is now for us to engage them ideologically, engage them spiritually. And they have in Islam, church and the state, mosque and the state is same and one. If you were to stand on a corner of a street, Dan, and say, I don't think Muhammad was a prophet, I don't think he's a model, I don't think he was right, I don't think that, just only speaking to yourself in an Islamic country, your penalty will be death. And who will implement it? Not only the people, the authorities, the law enforcement agency. Therefore, they hold and they are the servant of the mosque, they are the servant of the religion. I think Americans and the West must engage Islam and bring reform to such an extent that there, the church and the state, or the mosque and the state, are two different issues. We need to talk about that development, about that freedom and those values. Europe is, of course, on all accounts, not only just the rise of Islam, but also demographically it is changing. And as the numbers of Muslims increase, that is going to impact the political decisions. And as a result, it is going to impact the West as a whole, and particularly the United States of America. Europe, sadly, is at a place where, for most of the times, it remains in a debate and in points of view differently from the Americans. And I think that it is a sad thing because their willpower is being undermined severely. And their stand for justice, for liberty, and for freedom is being just handed over, I think, easily surrendered. I don't think we have begin to talk about the ending. You see, when we say we want to give them democracy isn't just a ballot box and then who are the two political candidates? Well, it is Ahmadinejad and Nasrallah. A fantastic choice. You know, that is the issue that we are talking about. Democracy isn't just a ballot box. Democracy is a system of values, that equality of all men. Does Islam recognize the right of a Jew to live and exist, and the right of a Christian to exist, and the right of a man and a woman to espouse, change their faith, their religion, discard their religion, accept another religion, and do what they think it is appropriate as long as they're not harming others? Is there an equality between a man and a woman? Do they have the rights, the same rights? These are rights and obligations, you see. Can I express my point of view? That is the values of democracy. There is no slave trade? Yes, there is no master. All these things form democracy. I think we have not engaged them in our value system and bringing the reforms. We need to engage the Islamic authorities. We can't just afford to sit with them and they say, oh, well, it is a religion of peace, and by the way, these are only few fundamentalists, it has nothing to do with me. No, sir. We need to engage with the Muslim community and their leaders, the imams, and not singularly, not individuals who would issue me a fatwa. No, we want the OIC, the Organization of the Islamic Conference, people like the Muslim World League, the Azhar, their ulamas, the Islamic jurisprudence, and their scholars, to say and issue a fatwa that this text, those Quranic texts, are no longer valid. They are not to be implemented. Give us their new interpretations and let them vouch publicly in the newspapers, over the satellite TVs, over the internet radios, and say, this is what it is. Until they have done so, until we have managed to bring them to that stage, I don't think we can begin to talk about the end. Because if we now talk about the end, we will be talking about just a concept of surrender. It is very simple, Dan. The issue is that you are doing a sacrifice unto Allah. You see, the Quran says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will never, ever attain righteousness until such time you sacrifice whatever you love most. And even in a footnote, if you have an English Quran, you will see that that sacrifice is in the cause of Allah, and the best sacrifice a man can give is his own life. So it is not viewed that, you're going to blow yourself up. No, on the contrary, it is viewed that you're making a sacrifice, you're attaining righteousness, that is the greatest glory. Therefore, you'll find, for instance, as in a recent arrest, a woman with a child, 6 months old or whatever, however old, I don't know all the details, but would be willing to sacrifice. And this is on their part a determination to appease Allah. So it works differently. You are looking at it from a different filter of glasses. That is what I'm asking you. You need to understand that mentality and begin to engage it and address it ideologically and dismantle it, if the word is correct. If that is not a correct word, forgive me. But what we probably need to, in America you would say, to reform it, to bring them up to speed. And I think that that's how it needs to be.